I really got in trouble as a child, and that's because I had an external appearance of moral uprightness. But I found out quite early on in my Christian journey that I couldn't hide my true self away from God. He literally saw my mess. I saw my mess too, and it was quite hard for me to deal with it. In fact, it took me a bit of time to come to terms with it. But I thank God for the gospel. I remember how quite early on in my Christian journey, I thought that this whole euphoria of basking in the too good to be true message of the gospel, I thought that those things would eventually fade away. I remember being so scared that I would do something, I would sin, and I would disappoint God, and then he would just take his Holy Spirit from me. Take not your Holy Spirit from me. Those songs, right? I really did think that I would lose my salvation, but looking back now, I wish I could go back in time and just tell the younger version of me to calm down, because it's been 7 years and Jesus is literally still keeping his word. Jesus is still keeping his end of the bargain, and oh, my heart is so glad. You might ask me what that word is. You might ask me what his bargain is. Is that he is able to keep me from stumbling and to present me before himself holy, blameless, without fault. What a gift that is. I wish I could go back to tell my younger self that the same Jesus who saved me from sin is able to cause me to walk in a manner that's consistent with the gospel message I received. You see, there's a verse that people quote a lot, how that we're to walk out our salvation with fear and trembling. And they think that it means if you are not fearful in preserving your salvation, you're going to lose it. No, just check other translations. It literally just tells you to show the proof, the working out of your salvation. Right? It tells you if you're saved, then show that you're saved. If you've been raised in a good home, then let your character show that you have been raised in a good home. That's simply what it means. But guess what? The next verse after that says, for it is God that works in you both to will and do his good pleasure. That means that the moment I'm saved, God does such a work in my heart that he will cause me to desire his will, and he will empower me with the Spirit of God in my inner man to do his will. Let me use this analogy to break it down to you further, because I really want to break that anxiety. You see, when a baby is born, the baby is not responsible for maturing himself or herself. The baby should have guardians and parents who would teach him or her the right values to embody, the way to live, the behaviors to emulate, and I dare say to a large extent the interest that child will most likely grow up to have. In the same way, everyone that comes into Christ comes in as a babe, as a baby. And it's not your responsibility to change yourself. It's not your responsibility to mature yourself. God has created systems that if you put yourself in them, if you yield, if you submit to them, you have 100% chance of being transformed. I kid you not. Like, I am proof. You don't get. You see, God took an impatient girl like me and he made me patient. He took the frustrations, the tiredness, the emptiness in me, and he filled it up with joy and purpose, the kind of joy that is not circumstantial, the one that is present regardless of any situation. All you literally need to do is submit. Just say, yes, Lord, I yield myself to the systems you've put in place for my growth. I did this and my life changed. My life is proof that God's promise to give new life and new hearts is not just possible, but it is 100% true for everyone who believes. And for that, I thank God.